Hey everybody, good evening and welcome back to another Swiflearn session. So, like we always do before beginning, I would like to introduce you to Swiflearn, exactly what Swiflearn is. So, Swiflearn is India's most sincere learning destination for grade 3 to 10. It provides you 100% interactive classes. It gives you personalized attention with a batch with a maximum of 6 students, a dedicated academic mentor, a team to track and work on your progress is always there to help you. Yeah. And of course, we cover the syllabus as per the school exam schedule and also handle custom request. Now, if you have want to know the key features, they're right in front of you. They are like detailed progress report. Like when you're going to work with us, you're going to get a detailed progress report of that. You're going to get a Swift Learn academic test series to do and check your entire knowledge. Take ultimate test practices with us and subjective test for school exams as well. And if you have not yet booked a free trial, please do it right away. And of course, for coming and joining with us for the amazing sessions on SwiftLearn, please subscribe, press the bell icon, and never miss any update for a session. So, today we are in a session of Heredity and Evolution, Grade 10 Biology. So, it's a fifth session. So, if you want to have a look at what we have already covered in Heredity and Evolution, please go onto the YouTube channel and check out what are the different videos and what are the topics that were covered in all these sessions that are done up till now. So moving further, before moving like any further, I would like to recapitulate what we did just before this class, like just before this session, the fourth session of Heredity and Evolution. We covered over there the species, how the species are, what all species, how do we do them. Then we learned about speciation. We also learned about evolution and classification and evidences of evolution, that how did everybody got to know that there was an evolution or a change occurring in the nature or in nature or maybe in different species, right? So if I give you a little kind of a little hint of what we covered of what exactly speciation or different kind of species are, the process by which the new species develop from the existing species is known as speciation, and it is an event that splits a population of the same species into two independent species which cannot reproduce among them, right? So if you want to know the things more into detail, please go back and have a look at what we have covered in our previous classes. What are we going to do today? So, today we are going to learn about evolution by stages. We are going to learn about adaptation. We are going to learn about molecular phylogeny, and we are also going to learn about artificial selection and human evolution. So, before starting the new concept, let's discuss these two questions. These two questions are going to help us recapitulate and the entire thing what we have done up till now. So, what exactly is evolution? You have to think in your own words, maybe. Now, you have to think in your own words what we have learned up till now. Try to recapitulate all the things and try to put it in your own words. Like, if I put it in my words, then evolution as a term in biology is a change in the characteristics of species over a several generation, right? It takes millions and millions of years. That means several generations will take part and relies on the process of natural selection. The theory of evolution is based upon the idea that all species are related and gradually changed over time, right? This was my description about evolution in my own words. Now, the question that I am leaving all of you with is discuss the evolutionary relationship between whales and humans. Okay. So here you have to think upon the lines that how humans and whales can be similar to each other. So if I just give you a hint here that what exactly you're going to talk about are the homologous structure. think about the homologous structure, and if you want to know more about homologous structure and how it works and how what are the different types of features of it are, then you have to go back and look into the video that is already there on the YouTube channel. Let's begin. Now, we all know that the Earth is the only planet that has life on it. Until today, we know this. Now, there are currently around 8.7 million known species on Earth. A number of that changes as species go extinct, right? We have heard this so many times that the species got extinct. That means that they are not anymore available or seen onto Earth, right? Now, as new species are discovered and with improvement in our methods of differentiating between organisms, so sometimes species get extinct and sometimes they are even every day adding up to this 8.7 million. This number is being, I would say, added up also sometimes, and sometimes decreases. When it extinct, it is decreased. When something with the help of speciation or evolution, there are new species are born or generated and we found them, so the number is added over here. Then, what exactly evolution by stages means? So over here, we are going to learn about that how are the stages of evolution work. Exactly from where does this evolution starts from? So evolution of a complex organisms has taken place through a series of DNA changes. Okay, and that is known as mutation, created bit by bit over generations. It's not a process that today, as we are the humans and next generation maybe think or may not have toes that have fingers onto it, yeah. So but maybe after like thousands of generation has passed on, because these are the things that are not used, right? So maybe there are generations that will come in future which are without the toe, I would say without the fingers over there, right? For example, evolution of eyes also, if it's the past one right now what we are discussing. So in the past, the eyes were not present. So what exactly it was? Eyes were not present in the initial stages of life on Earth. It evolved slowly through a series of changes. Eyes would not have evolved through a single DNA change. Then what? How did it occur then? So planaria is the first animal which shows eye-like structure. The dark spot on planaria are light sensitive spots, but a planaria cannot distinguish between two different objects. Yeah, it so the first organism that had a, I would say, a eye kind of a structure was planaria, and but it if you think about that, it was not exactly eyes how it looks like in us or maybe animals or other things right now. It was just a spot kind of a thing, and that was light sensitive. That's it. Eyes of the insects are compound eyes, which are made up of thousands of optical surfaces. If you have ever observed or if you have ever seen a microscopic eye of small insects, if you can see, they are not exactly like human eyes. They are composed of very small, tiny, I would say, light sensitive kind of surfaces. Eyes of a higher animals are simple eyes, which are composed of single lens. That is the human eyes, or maybe some kind different kind of animal eye, which are that are, I would say, higher animals, right? Next, so look at this picture. This was the planaria, how it the eye looked like. These are just simple spots. These are just simple spots, and it does not at all match to what our eyes look like, isn't it? And look at this compound eye of an insect. They are made up of very small, tiny kind of lenses, or I would say object that are light sensitive. Moving further, look into these eyes. These are kind of similar to ours, and these are the human eyes, the exact, or the eyes that have a vision of everything, colors to the infinite area that we can observe, right? Then, most of animals cannot differentiate among colors. Depth perception is also weak in many animals. Human eyes are the most advanced one because humans can recognize colors and have very good depth perception. Depth means how far the object is, where do I have to pick it, where I have to keep it. We know exactly where and how these things has to be done, right? Next, we have adaptation. A characteristic of particular animals post evolution may be useful for performing a totally different function. For example, feathers. So, if you think about feathers, even nowadays we have many like kind of animals, a few animals around us. They have wings, but they cannot fly. Think upon those animals. Like if like they do not have a good flight like other birds do, a good flight from one place to another. If I talk about a peacock, they have feathers, isn't it? But can you, like, if you just think upon it, can they have a very high fly? No, they cannot. They are mostly near to the ground itself. If I talk about even hens, they have feathers, but they also cannot do a very long flight. In in like older times, also millions and millions years back, even there were dinosaurs. So dinosaurs, even if you have seen in the movies, they also had feathers, but they were also not using them for a much higher flight or using them from to go from one place to another, right? Similarly, but nowadays what we see is that the birds, they use their feathers or their wings to fly. So what exactly the other animals they were doing with the feathers earlier? So earlier, long feathers were considered to provide insulation in cold weather. Insulation means providing heat, providing the warmth. So the weathers would provide them the warmth with because they had feathers, and feathers are considered warm, isn't it? Some reptiles like the dinosaurs had feathers, but very few were adapted for flying. In the present day, bird uses feathers for flight, which is an example of adaptation. So now you have understood what adaptation is. That with the where they were having wings, but they were not fully used or utilized. Earlier they were used for some other function, but now they have adapted and they have started using the same thing or the same features to do something better, right? So if you can see right here, the animal or the dinosaur is using the feathers for insulation. On the other hand, nowadays feathers are used for flight. Now, what is molecular phylogeny? So, evolution occurs due to change in DNA. We all know that. Therefore, by studying the difference in DNA of organisms, we can learn about evolution. Which organism evolved from whom? Right? This is the function of a DNA, isn't it? This approach is based on the idea that organisms which are more distinctly related will accumulate a greater number of differences in their DNA and vice versa. Such studies trace the evolutionary relationship, and it has been highly gratifying to find that the relationship among different organisms shown by molecular phylogeny match the classification scheme. So if we talk about that how the species have evolved, so we can think or we can say that these species have evolved from one another itself, and with the help of evolution or changes and divergence and everything, we have different kinds of millions and millions of species present on the earth. Now, does evolution always lead to the formation of better species? And what do you think about that? Is it like always possible that whatever is happening or whatever evolution or whatever changes are happening, are they happening for a good, or always there is a better species that are taking place? What do you think about that? Think a little bit, and let's, with this, keeping this thing into mind, let's go ahead and read. Evolution should not be equated with progress. Okay, now why? New organisms formed from evolution are not always better. Moreover, all organisms were not always insufficient. Example, this can be proved by example of bacteria. Bacteria are the simplest and one of the oldest organisms on earth. Their simple body design does not make them weak from any angle. Bacteria are known to survive some of the hardest climates, some of the harshest climates, like craters of volcanoes and sulfur spring. So it does not at all make them a weaker organism, isn't it? Many animals have certain features which hamper even their routine activities. If you can see here these antelopes right here in front of you, what is the drawback? If you can just look into the picture and can observe, the drawback is right there, horns, I would say. What exactly do they do? For example, the branch like horns of antelopes are the handicap for them. Why? When an antelope runs from it for its life, there are times when its horns get entangled in the branches or bushes. This result in the death of the antelope, isn't it? They're quite huge and quite big, which hampers their, I would say, the growth, or where they are traveling, so they can just get tangled around the branches or the woods, isn't it? Now, we have seen a peacock a million times around our houses. Like, colorful feathers of this male peacock are very, very beautiful, and it attracts and it helps them attract the females as well, right? But because of its conspicuous feathers, it can be easily spotted by a predator, right? A predator means the one who's going to catch it, or maybe going to catch it for the feathers, or do want to eat it. Yeah, because of its bulky feathers, it cannot fly away to safety, because we discussed it, because they have feathers, but still they cannot have a good flight without them, with the help of them. Evolution basically leads to more complex organisms due to genetic variation and natural selection. In evolution, old species need not disappear. One species may evolve into new. Example, chimpanzees and men. Absolutely, you're thinking correct. Like, we, as it's considered to be the theory that humans have been evolved or generated or being grown up from chimpanzees, but that doesn't mean that the chimpanzees from Earth has vanished. No, they're still there, and we are also there. They would have had a common ancestor from which both would have evolved. We have not descended from chimpanzees, right? You can look into the picture as well. Now, what is artificial selection? This is the usage of plants. Artificial selection is the usage of plants which desirable characteristics to produce new varieties. Broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, collard brie, and kale are produced from its ancestor wild cabbage by artificial selection. Humans cultivate wild cabbage for over 2000 years and produced different vegetables from it by artificial selection. Example, cabbage by selecting short distance between the leaves, cauliflower by selecting sterile flowers, kale by selecting large leaves, celery by selecting the swollen stem, broccoli by arresting flower growth. So this is how, using artificial selection from one wild cabbage over past 2000 years, these multiple species, or these multiple kind of new species were created. You can look at the different kind of species right here. There's a cauliflower, there's a broccoli, there's kale, and there's everything here. Now, human evolution. Now, excavating fossils, time dating, and determination of DNA sequences are used to study human evolutionary relationships. The study of human evolution indicate that all of us belong to a single species that evolved in Africa and then spread across the world in stages, isn't it? So maybe we were evolved from the chimpanzees, then initially we grew into the wild living mammals or animals, whatever you can think of, and then they were mostly evolved. It by the studies, it says that it was evolved in Africa, and then from over there the human species spread over in the entire world. Now, let's do a quick recapitulation or a checkpoint to see what we have covered in today's session. So, here, if we start from evolution cannot be equated with progress, justify this statement. Yeah, evolution cannot be equated with progress. Justify this statement. Hence, the answer says evolution cannot always be equated to progress because evolution does not always lead to the formation of a new species. The newly formed species, as a result of evolution, may have complex organization but cannot be considered better to the earlier species. Evolution simply leads to, I would say, diversification, isn't it? So it gives a lot more kind of species, add a number of species to the environment, but it does not mean that the older one has to go away or the older one was bad and what we have evolved right now is the better one. Now, give one word to these answers, to the fill in the blanks. The sequence of gradual change which takes place in the primitive organisms over millions of years in which new species are reproduced is known as, what are we learning about? It is the everything that we are doing. It is the species are produced is known as evolution. Second question, what is the ancient name for all human beings? So this is kind of a GK question as well, isn't it, if you can think of. So what is the ancient name for all human beings? It is Homo sapiens. What is it? Homo sapiens. The organs present in the two organisms indicate that they are derived from the same ancestors are called homologous organs. So if the organs present in two organisms indicate that they are derived from the same ancestor, then they are known as homologous organs. So here we go with the answers as well. So the first answer was evolution. Second, all the species, earlier human beings were known as Homo sapiens. And the third one is homologous organs. Now we have some multiple choice questions. So I'm going to read it out, the question. I'm going to explain it and think for 2 minutes and then let's come up with an answer. Now, Charles Darwin was the first person to propose. What did Charles Darwin propose? He proposed that the evolution occurs. Mhm. Second option, a mechanism for how evolution occurs, or that the earth is older than few thousand years. D, a mechanism for evolution that was supported by evidence, or E, that population growth can outspace the growth of food resources. So, what was it? Again, I'm reading the question. Charles Darwin was the first person to propose. And the answer is Charles Darwin was the first person to propose a mechanism for evolution that was supported by an evidence. Second question, which of these conditions should completely prevent the occurrence of natural selection in population over time? So which of these conditions should completely prevent the occurrence of natural selection in the population over time? Option A, all variation between the individual is due only to environmental factors. The environment is changing at a relatively slow rate. The population size is large. Population lives in a habitat where there are no competing species present. Giving you 2 minutes to think upon, repeating the question, which of these conditions should completely prevent the occurrence of natural selection in a population over time? And the answer for the same is all variation between individuals is due only to environmental factors. I hope you are clear. Moving next. Question. Give a population that contains genetic variation. What is the correct sequence of the following events under the influence of natural selection? So here I have given you 4 steps. Okay, now there are 4 steps of how genetic variation happens. So these 4 steps are scattered over here or jumbled up over here. Now you have to give me a proper sequence in which this genetic variation happens. Okay, under the influence of natural selection. You have to give me the sequence of events, how it's going to happen. I'm randomly reading the sequence right now that is already given on the screen. It says well adapted individual leave more offspring than to poorly adapted individual. A change occurs in the environment. Genetic frequencies within the population change. Poorly adapted individuals have decreased survivorship. Giving you 2 minutes to read and go through the 4 conditions. You have to give me a sequence of event of genetic variation under the influence of natural selection. Now, if you have gone through it, I'm going to give you an options. I'm going to give you options. So here are multiple options, A, B, C, D, and E. I have put them into different sequence. Here you have to select one. So first one is 2413, 4213, C is 4123, D 4231, E 2431. Taking you back to the entire procedure, it will give you a more clarity onto the events that happen in the under the influence of natural selection, taking you back to it. So if you can see the different option, if I read it out for you again, it says well adapted individuals leave more offspring than do poorly adapted individual. A change occurs in the environment. Genetic frequencies within the population change. Poorly adapted individual have decreased survivorship. So the correct answer for this is, out of all these here, is the A part. Okay, and what does the sequence says? It says the sequence as 2413. So 2 is a change occurs in the environment. Then poorly adapted individuals have decreased survivorship. Then, well-adapted individuals leave more offspring than do poorly adapted individuals. And then genetic frequencies within the population change. So here we are done with putting the events in the correct order. Moving further to the 4th question here. It says if 2 modern organisms are distinctly related in an evolutionary sense, then one should expect that they live in very different habitats. They should share fewer homologous structure than 2 more closely related organisms. Their chromosomes should be very similar. They share a common ancestor relatively recently. They should be members of the same genus. Reading the question again. If 2 modern organisms are distinctly related in an evolutionary sense, then one should expect that. And the answer for the same is B. They should share fewer homologous structure than 2 more closely related organisms. So here we have the answers to all of the questions that we discussed. The first one was D, second A, third A, and fourth B. So what have we learned today? We have learned about adaptation, uses of feathers in primitive and evolved birds. Molecular phylogeny, evolution due to change in DNA. evolved species. Then we learned about evolution by stages, evolution of I from planaria to humans. Then we learned about artificial selection and family of wild cabbage and human evolution. So thank you everybody for joining in today's session. I hope I have cleared most of your doubt, and this session is going to help you learn a lot more and will help you score better in your exams. So all the best. Thank you so much for joining in. And if you have not yet subscribed the channel, please subscribe it, press the bell icon and never miss any update for an amazing next session.